Hello, hello. So this week, I decided to change things up a little. Instead of using my gouache paints, I decided to use my liners, which I used to use to color before, because I know they're supposed to be highlighters, but I listen. I just use what I have, okay? So I decided to use color pencils and my liners to do the drawing this week. And I gotta say, it was probably more relaxing than some of the stuff I've done recently. But at the same time, I end up remembering the one instance in between when I messed up the eyes and I had to go back to my gouache paints to go and get the white to fix it. Honestly, pretty great solution. But Khatun, I'm sorry. That's all I got to say. Speaking of Khatun, that is the person I'm interviewing this week. Out of everyone in my system, she knows the most about the system. So I'm looking forward to interviewing her about like the things I don't really know about my system. And I'm looking forward to seeing what I learned today. Okay, I'm kind of excited for this if I haven't made that clear already. I'm well aware that you're excited. It's hard not to notice that you're excited. Oh my god, okay. I have. Well, actually, let's do a little bit of backstory. I've learned quite a lot about my system this year, and it's been quite new information. And honestly, just the way I found out was probably not the way I expected to find out some of these things. Um, at one point, my stepmom kind of asked me a bunch of questions about my system, and I would have to like turn to Khatun and be like, I don't know the answer to that, do you? And of course, she knew because she is very much like, I guess, one of the leaders for the system. I don't know how to explain that. Like, everyone kind of just looks to her for guidance in terms of like how we do things here. So, I asked her, one of the questions my stepmom asked me was like, how many altars are there in total? And that's a question I never thought to ask because my silly self thought, oh, the people I know are just the number that I have. That is an incorrect assumption in my case. I think that's the case for a lot of people, but in my case, that wasn't the answer. So I turned to Khatun and I was like, how many altars do I have, like, really? And what was the answer, Khatun? Would you like to share with us? Well, in total in our system, we actually have 33 altars. So 8 of them are littles, and then the other 25 are basically adults, but that's including, Athi, me, Sigurd, Angel, and Nujum, the people that this channel knows. There are other altars that Athi has yet to meet. Athi's actually started to meet quite a few of them, so for the most part, she's slowly starting to meet more people in the system. And I think out of all of the altars that are usually in the front, which would be Athi, Sigurd, Gel, and Najum. Uh, Gel probably spends the most time kind of in the inner world compared to everyone else. Oh, that's something I'd like to clarify. I'm pretty sure there have been multiple times in previous videos where I've said like headspace when I meant inner world. That's just me not paying attention to what I'm saying, of course, because I am a professional. But I'm sorry. I mean, to clarify, most of those times I probably did mean the inner world. I hope it was kind of obvious through context, but I am sorry that I wasn't keeping an eye on what I was saying, I guess. Um, but yeah, that's true because I'm only ever in the front. I've never been to the inner world. I've never really moved past out of the headspace like in a really, really long time. So I don't really know much about the inner world. I don't know who's there. I don't know a lot of things. But in the last month or two, I've been meeting a lot of the altars, and now out of the 33 total, that's including myself, so let's say 32 besides me, I think I have met almost all the littles except for one, and I've met maybe half of the adults, which was interesting to say the least. So my question to you, Khatun, would be, how do you think this is gonna pan out? Like, as in, like, do you think I will actually meet all of the altars? I honestly think you probably will. So far, everyone in the inner world is quite easy to talk to, except for maybe one or two exceptions. But they don't spend as much time with us in the inner world either. We just know that they're not dormant. So I think in another video we mentioned that there are we have dorms in us, like in the headspace at some position there where all the dormant altars are. And from all the ones that are awake in our system and in the inner world, regularly interacting with each other in the inner world, all of those altars are quite nice and they're quite friendly. Um, and I think at the pace that we're currently going, where Athie's met so many altars already, it won't be long before she meets everyone. I think the biggest catalyst for this would have to be Damien's integration with Rose. It started to make the other altars in the inner world feel like if they did come to the front, it would be okay. And I think that a large part of that also has to do with the fact that Athie handled the integration quite well. And so, when the others asked how did Athie handle it, was she okay with Damien suddenly reappearing and all that sort of stuff, it was very easy for me to say that, yeah, she was fine with it. She didn't have any issues. She handled it quite well. And she's, welcomed Najum with open arms. And, I'm pretty sure that if any of you were to go to the front, you would receive the same treatment. There have been littles that Athie has known previously, but it's been a while since she's spoken to them, so they weren't really sure how she would react because she's changed quite a lot since she knew them. But fortunately, of course, Najum managed to retain Damien's memories. It was easy for her to connect with those littles, but they also felt secure knowing that Athie was still as accommodating as they remembered her being. And on top of that, Athie starting to meet a lot of the altars that are probably the more extroverted ones in the system. So, they've come out to the front, they've spoken to her, she started to build relationships with them as well. And it's quite nice seeing everyone get along. And I know that for Athie, it's quite hard to ever disconnect and come back to the inner world and see how things are there. But if she ever gets the chance to do something like that, it would be quite nice. I think that, it would help her further her relationships with the other altars in the system. Yeah, because, I never expected to have, higher than I don't know what I was expecting, but the number 33 threw me off. I wasn't ever expecting that to be the number. I just thought, oh, probably somewhere in the tens, in the teens, maybe. I don't know. I was thinking, there's probably more littles than I know of. But yeah, that number really threw me for a loop. I wasn't mentally prepared for that. But so far, everyone I've met has been so wonderful and so nice that I don't feel bad knowing my system's that big, I guess. It just feels like it'll be a little bit more effort, but I'm ready to put that work in if it needs to be done. I honestly think you won't have any issue at all. I think that, everyone that I've ever interacted with in the inner world has been very lovely. And I think that, considering how you met your most recent altar, how that situation was handled was done quite well. And so, they obviously were quite open to listening and open to adapting to the situation. Oh, I think that's a great story. So I was standing in the kitchen when I suddenly felt myself dissociating really hard out of nowhere, and it freaked me out for a second because that hasn't happened in a very long time. But more than that, I knew it wasn't one of the people that are usually in the front with me. So I had to be like, hey, listen, whoever this is, I don't mind you fronting, but please just don't kick me out of the driver's seat. You can stay co-conscious with me, that's totally fine, but we need to share this space right now. And I wasn't even sure if that was gonna work, but it surprisingly did. And the person who was trying to come out to the front was like, oh, okay, hi, I didn't know that was a thing. And that's true. If they've spent their whole time in the inner world, they don't know how we work things in the front now. And they're lovely. I have great conversations with them already. They're absolutely wonderful. And I'm really happy that, I'm slowly starting to meet more people in my system. And I think you also recently met someone else before that who was someone who's actually been around a very long time. Yes, I met an altar who's been around a lot longer than I expected. And before I used to say, oh, my oldest altars are Najum and Khatun because they're the only ones I knew. But this person is also someone who I would say has been around about the same amount of time as Khatun has. And they're also very great. I don't want to say anyone's names or put them out on the channel yet until I know that they're comfortable with it and that they want to be a part of it. So I'm going to leave that to them. But till then, you know, if there is something revolving around them, I will keep the story as like vague as possible, but without like giving any like details about them. I think that is probably the best way to go about it. I think you're respecting their boundaries that way, and I think they would really appreciate that. I think as of right now, most people in the system aren't that ready to put themselves out there because they've only just come to know Athie. To go further than that and like, you know, suddenly introduce themselves to this whole new world that they've never really tried to interact with before would be too much. Everyone already has quite a comfortable life in the inner world, and you know, Athie is also starting to try and accommodate them in the outside world as well. And you know, just doing things like she's probably started to notice more things about some of the alters, like times they've actually come out without her realizing it was them. Because again, when you know someone, well, when Athie dissociates especially, it becomes very hard for her to feel who is around her, if that makes sense. Like feel as in who's in the headspace around her. um and so there've probably been times where someone actually, you know, swapped in and out and she didn't even notice, and now, you know, she's probably picked up on what the sensations of certain alters coming forward feels like, or what are certain triggers for those alters and how it works. That's actually something I have definitely picked up, you're right. There have been like moments where I interact with something and I'll suddenly realize I had a reaction that I wasn't expecting, and then I'd be like, oh, it was actually an alter. Like it just, that was them, and I never picked up on it because in that moment I don't even realize I'm doing it. But you're right, you're definitely right in that I have noticed behaviors that I didn't know I had before, that other people have noticed in me and told me about, and I would have no idea what they're talking about. I've started to piece together, who is this coming from, who is saying this, who's saying that, like all these things that they're kind of like clicking into place a little. There aren't many alters that come to the front besides the ones that are already on the channel. I would have to say that, you know, there are only maybe one or two that I know of that come to the front. I would agree with that. There are only one or two in the inner world that come out in the front. Not even often, but you know, when they're there and there happens to be a positive trigger in the outside world, they will come straight to the front. But yes, you're right. I think that you're actually handling it quite well, and I'm very proud of you for that. I think you've done a very good job in trying to make everyone feel comfortable enough to come forward, but also just, you know, feel secure enough to, you know, talk about themselves with you as well, without it being something, you know, that makes them feel like you might have a negative reaction to them being there. And I think that that wasn't easy for you to do, to have to accept something so suddenly, especially, you know, when you were really unaware of it before that. Yeah, I wouldn't say it was hard, but it was confusing how I didn't know about it. I think that was the part that bothered me, was the fact that I didn't know about it at all. Like having no idea whatsoever that there were really, you know, 33 people, well, 32 other people besides me, children included. Like, just how did I never pick up on that? How did I never see any clues? Was I that disconnected from myself? Like, it was just so like strange for me to process that information. I think that you're right, you were disconnected from yourself, but also you haven't had a chance to leave the front in a very, very long time. You've been fronting for so long that I think that for you to have ever known them, you would have had to leave. But you can't do that. You've had to, you know, you've had this responsibility on you to live as the person that the body is for the longest time. Like, you're not only the host, you're also the person that is constantly fronting, and that's quite a heavy burden to have. But at the same time, you know, you can't blame yourself for not being able to meet and interact with all the alters. We actually, Athie started doing something where she keeps a list on her phone now of all the alters, what they prefer to identify as, all those things are in the list, and I think that's a great start. I think she's doing good by, you know, keeping track of things. Athie usually is terrible at remembering people's names, so it's a good thing she's writing them down. But you said you also wanted to know more about the inner world and how things work there. Yeah, I'm genuinely curious, like, because I can't go there for now. My current situation restricts me, so I would be really happy to learn something new about the inner world today. Well, besides knowing that there are 32 people living there, well, I would say less than that, maybe 27, 28 people living there. You know who hangs out with who already, but I would have to say that, for the most part, it's like constantly living in it's like living in the same neighborhood for a long time. Everyone knows each other, everyone's friendly, everyone knows. Okay, not a neighborhood, a small town. Everyone knows each other, everyone knows what the other person does, but no one's in each other's business. It's just like friendly. We've grown up with each other, we understand each other, we know each other's boundaries and things. We're like a tight knit group of friends, or a very comfortable, respectful, with boundaries family. That's how I would put it. Um, Everyone is, quite accommodating and tolerant of each other, and there have been times that people haven't gotten along, and I'm pretty sure Nujum would know about those because she has Damien's memories, and Damien again grew up in the inner world, and there have been times that people haven't agreed with each other on things. There have been times splits have happened without anyone really understanding how or why, and just despite all of that, everyone's managed to navigate it quite well. And I think that there are things we can go into more detail once those people are more comfortable coming to the front and talking about themselves. I can already imagine some of them being comfortable with it. I feel like I already know who would be doing that soon enough. But as for now, respecting boundaries, letting Athie's relationship grow with them properly, and we'll see how it goes from there. But I feel like things are looking quite good for the system so far, and I'm very happy that everyone's getting along quite well. Yeah, I think I'm happy about that too. I think that was something I was nervous about after I found out how many altars I actually have, but I think things have been going pretty well, so I kind of look forward to meeting everyone else. um, there's also an altar that we don't know what their name is. Like, nobody in the inner world knows what their name is either, because they don't live in the inner world. They just kind of wander around unexpectedly. There have been a lot of pockets in like the headspace in general that we don't know about. Like, again, Dragon was in one that nobody really knew about, and there was a child altar that was there with her for a long time, and that was unexpected. And again, from what we've understood, there's a good chance that Gel knows the headspace very well because of Front's ability to travel through it. And so I think that, if anything, if I can pin Gel down long enough to have a conversation with her, I think that might be a really interesting video. Honestly, if you manage to do that, I hope I'm there in that interview as well, because I have a lot of questions for her as well. I might just write them down and leave it to you, and then we can see how it goes from there. But Gel probably knows about the other aspects of the inner world that even I don't know. Well, not the inner world, but the headspace outside of it that even I don't really know about. So, I think that that would be a very interesting talk. I hope you can pin her down as well. She bounces around quite a bit. It's kind of hard to peg her down every now and again. But yeah, I think that that's it for this week. I hope everyone's staying safe. I hope everyone is taking care of themselves. I know we are in trying times, so please look after yourself and try your best to look after the people around you as well. Yeah, things are not so hot right now, but I hope that everyone is being as safe as they possibly can and taking care of themselves. And I will see everyone next week. Bye bye. Bye.